Hey, what's going on? Ed Fletcher here, and I wanted to jump on and talk about the N word. This is largely in response to a video I posted today on my Facebook page where a Sacramento woman gets into it with a white woman and punches her in the face. There was a lot of commentary going there, and I thought it was an interesting discussion, so I wanted to surface it here. And I will put out the offer that if there's other people that want to kind of join me on camera here, I can make that available and we can have a multi-person discussion. So quick remedial conversation for everybody who's coming to this. Of course, nigger was a word used by slave owners to refer to black people. And it was always a pejorative. And it's been painful for black people for decades, centuries, longstanding. But coming into the 90s, when I was a kid, there's been various efforts to try to reform the word or reshape the word or reclaim the word, and never really has all of Black America got on board with whatever we're trying or not trying to do. So you may hear people using the soft N, nigga, to referring to other black people, as opposed to the hard R, nigger, which was what white people said. Now, it's hard to distinguish the difference, so white people don't get to say either. So that's just the basic bottom line, unless you're a world acclaimed rapper, and then even then it may not work anywhere, everywhere. Talk more about the word in a second, but I do want to jump back to this video. And this video depicts a woman who is engaged in an argument with a white customer, and the white customer is apparently offended the woman at some point in time. We don't get to see the whole context of it, but she eventually challenges her and says, "Say nigger one more time." And multiple times she challenges her, and the woman backs up and gets a little scared, and then eventually decides that she's going to stand her ground, say the word, and she gets punched in the face. And we could debate the rightness and wrongness of what happened there. And like, first off, I remarked that I've never challenged anybody to say the word, and I was thinking that most of the time I've ended up running or fleeing from the situation, and that in some ways it's got to be incredibly exhilarating to issue that ultimatum and then to stand on that ultimatum when it's violated. And I'm not sure that I ever want to do that or push somebody in that place, and it's not really in my nature. But I am thinking about how I have always been the diffuser, and has that really worked. I'm thinking about most of the time I was called the N word. I was young. I was a kid. Most times in the playground, a few times. Occasionally, well, I think maybe a few times in Louisiana, but more sort of a passing by and not a kind of like in your face kind of argument or discussion, or wasn't really a threat situation, more of a drive-by N-word epithet. But most recently I was called the N-word when I think it was 2016 or 15, after a forest fire. I was up in hill country reporting on the forest fires there, and I was wearing the orange Nomex jacket and looking like I was obviously working and hiking around the forest there. And I was at the apartment building there, and people were being cleared out of there as the fire was nearing there. And this woman said, "N-word, get out of here," and accused me of like being a looter or a thiever coming around the buildings, because clearly I didn't live there. I thought about at the time whether I should say something to the woman, but I didn't. I got back in the car. I tweeted about it. What good is that going to do? And at the time, I don't know that it would have done any good to kind of confront racist hill woman about her calling me the N-word, but it was just an example of like that California was still a lot of racial divide and a lot of ways to go in terms of racial harmony, and I'd known that, but you think that, well, things are getting better, and me as a reporter, I always felt like most people would talk to me, and occasionally you get a few that don't talk to you, but it also makes you wonder, like, well, I wonder how many people actually think like her but don't talk like her. I want to jump back to talking about depowering the N-word, and there's been various sort of efforts and conversations in different circles about that, and I think I was actually in that camp when I grew up in Orangevale, and then I thought, what if we stopped acting like it was so powerful, in sort of the same way that your sister teasing you, if you pretend like it doesn't hurt, then maybe she'll stop. So maybe if we stop pretending the N-word meant everything, that we would take the power away from it. So this was in college, and I started trying to use it and make that argument in a sort of a semi-intellectual manner. I was sort of quickly batted down on that thought, and I sort of stepped in line and stopped trying to, quote unquote, depower the N-word, and accepted sort of the general thought of, like, let's just reserve this word as something that we don't use. Meanwhile, a friend of mine, Tyler McMinn, also we grew up across the street from each other in Orangevale, then he moved to Folsom, and then he actually lived with me for a brief moment at Southern University in Baton Rouge on my dorm floor before he moved to New Orleans and got a job there. I think he also had that same kick and thinking that if we just started using it a little more colloquially and not as in a passionate sense, that it could power it. And I think he made that argument at his white college, and it did not go over well in Louisiana either. And I think we both, I guess, acknowledged the difficulty in trying to lead a small person campaign to do that. And now I'm more or less in the let's just leave that word as something that we don't use. And I don't write raps, so I don't really actually use the soft and nigga either. What does depower mean? I think the goal of depowering is that we're taking a word back, the same way that some people might try to say, oh, we're gonna say bitch to each other, and that way bitch doesn't mean as much, or girl power, or and the N-word, and if it didn't cause a painful reaction, then it doesn't mean as much, and you don't have to be a word to fight about. I think that's the idea of depowering. Other people can post their thoughts, other ideas there, but it's one of those issues that really can get people heated. And I want to jump back to another issue we talked about, the noose at Talladega. And I originally came on here and I talked about the noose, and I've shared some videos about the noose being found at NASCAR's Talladega Raceway in relation to racer Buddy Wallace's. They found this noose sitting in his car. So Bubba Wallace, the one black race car driver in NASA, talked about the need to remove the Confederate flag, and then a couple weeks later, they find a noose in his garage. And at first they thought this was a hate crime directed specifically at him. And then the FBI came and they looked at some video, and they said the noose was already there and wasn't a specific hate crime towards Bubba Wallace. And to a certain extent, that's a relief that, like, okay, nobody put that there, but there's also the problem that it was there. And those of you who aren't familiar with a noose, this is a noose. Got the loop, 13 bands around there, and it's used to hang people. It's a very specific knot, and anybody should know, whether you're white or black or whatever, that this is not something you hang around the schoolhouse or that you leave around. It will cause a visceral, painful reaction among black people. It's basically like leaving your grandfather's shotgun called Nigger Killer out around the place. You just don't do that. So anybody in the South or in the North, white, black, whatever, should know that we don't tie nooses. We don't leave nooses around. And so that should have been a problem. Anybody who saw that hanging on the garage pole should have been like, hey, let's take that down, or let's cut that off. Let's throw that away. We don't need it, or untie it. So I wanted to loop back to that situation because I didn't want to have put out information that has since been corrected. It's still definitely a wrong. It's still something that we need to correct as a society, but different wrong than the wrong that we thought. So I would love to hear your thoughts about the N-word. Have you ever been called it? Have you ever said it? And I will try to offer this as a safe space. I'm not going to come at you if you said that you've said it before, because we want to encourage growth. We want to encourage people to be able to admit hard truths, accept growth, and to move forward. I know that there are probably people that said it to me that probably maybe don't feel that in their heart anymore, but it was a time where they wanted to hurt me, and they knew that that's a very powerful word that would get a fear reaction from me, and it worked. I'm hoping that most of those people have changed and now see the world in a different way. I'm hoping that conversations like this can encourage that. I don't think in the video that the black woman was entirely in the right, but I also know that white people have banished that word around for far too long, and I've ran for far too long, and it's sad that even in 2015 I had to run from a woman who wanted to use that word to hurt me or scare me or discourage me. So let's all hope that we can continue to grow, continue to learn, and continue to evolve. And let's think about how we use our words, and let's try to grow together. All right, that's all I got to say. Thanks for watching Ever Forward. Today's shirt, you can't get the free press for free. Also, a Fred Lamore special. And we've got the Ever Forward sign there. The next Ever Forward coming up this Saturday, I'm going to be interviewing City Councilman Katie Valenzuela. I need to learn how to say her last name. Exciting about that interview and talking about her exciting agenda, talking about defunding the police, and really offering an outsider view to the Sacramento City Council. So looking forward to that interview. Hope you will join us then, and let's keep it going. Ever Forward. Talk to you later.